Hi guys, it's Oscrix. Today I want to make an updated video about my build because it's come to quite a completed state. This is by far the strongest build I've played so far in PoE 2. Part of that is because of the ability to make items in this patch in point 3 and the item quality being so high, but a lot of it has to do with just how strong overall the behavior of this build is. It has a lot of clear speed. I'm able to get a pretty decent amount of movement speed through gear and a little bit on the tree. Not as much as a Deadeye, that's for sure, but still enough to not feel terrible. And explosions from Lich plus the AoE from the weapon swapping projectile based specters really creates for a very, very strong clear speed build. And the strong Infernal Legion Ignite applied by the Bogfelled Commoner solves for single target DPS. That comes together with over 23,000 energy shield on CI. If you push it, you could get, 25, 26, maybe even more. On softcore, you can sacrifice some of that energy shield, which you really don't need that much on softcore, obviously, to get way more damage as well than I currently have. This build overall is completely cheap to start. You can play it in Act 3 with basically no items, just any items that you find with minion level in the campaign. And I played this at League Start in hardcore, and I killed most of the new bosses in around 4 to 5 seconds on fresh start gear with just the Infernal Legion. So the build's got a lot stronger since then. So this is by far what I would consider the best minion build in the game currently, and can be played in hardcore SSF and every game mode basically. So what I'm going to do now is talk a little bit about the build's skill tree and the gear in detail. In the description, I have some links to some other videos. There's two specific things you really need to do, which is go and find the specters that you need, and those videos will talk about where to get them and how to set them up. And there's also a link to a Mobalytics in the description that is also a written guide with some more details and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you have any questions, please come over to my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Oscrix, and I'm happy to answer your questions there. Or join my Discord, and I'm happy to answer questions there when I see them. So thanks a lot, guys, and let's get right into talking about all the build stuff. Okay, so let's start out with the gear for the character. So the first thing you need is a scepter. The stat priority here is minion skill levels, then minion maximum life, then allies' presence deal increased damage, and then spirit. So you want the most of all those stats, and the rest of it's pretty much irrelevant. It would be really nice to also get minion all resist in the suffixes in addition to minion levels and max life. You want to get this on a Shrine Scepter for Purity of Fire for a couple reasons. The first reason is Purity of Fire gives your specters around 40 plus fire res, which means that's less resistances you have to get for the Bogfelled Commoner, which degens its health against fire damage. The other reason why you would like to play Shrine Scepter is because currently, for whatever reason, I don't know why, don't ask me, if you put support gems in a Shrine Scepter, they cost no spirit. So you get Strong-Hearted, 50% less shock duration, 50% less ignite duration, and 50% increased minion damage while you're not on full mana, which is very easy to enable on this build because you have 0 innate mana regen, so you always have this up. So, much better than a Rattling Scepter for this build. You definitely want a Purity of Fire Shrine Scepter. So then the helmet, the thing you want here is as much energy shield as possible and +2 minion skills. This could also be corrupted for an additional minion skill or additional spirit. That's basically it there. As much ES as you can get in minion skills. The amulet is very similar. You just want as much energy shield as you can get and minion skills. You can also get spirit here too. That's all for that. And the anoint I have here is Spiral into Depression. It has 3% movement speed and 25% max ES. That's what I'm currently anointing. Some cheaper options are Long Distance Relationship for minion AoE. That was what I was using before this one. I've got a Sekima's Resolve. This is a pretty good ring. It makes it so you don't have cold resist for area penalties, which basically reads as plus 60% cold resist. And then some all attributes and rarity. And socketed in it, I have a 20% maximum energy shield jewel with minion damage and minion all resist. That's basically what you want all your jewels in this build to look like, is energy shield, minion damage, minion all resist. That's basically all the jewels that you want. Here's the body armor. I've got as much energy shield as possible and crit reduction from crit damage bonus reduction from hits that you take. Very powerful mod that makes it so You're a lot tankier against crits. Not so relevant in softcore. In softcore, I would actually get rid of this body armor and replace it with a tabula rasa and fill every single socket with 20% increased max ES, 15% minion damage, and whatever other stats you can get on there. That would be a pretty significant boost to the build's damage, about 90% minion damage, at the cost of about 6,000 or so energy shield, which is, you know, more than fair. You'll end up having like 16,000 ES on softcore, which is way more than enough to play softcore, that's for sure. And you gain 90% minion damage from switching to a tabula, so consider that for softcore. In the other ring slot, I've got an unset ring. That's important because you don't have enough slots in this build for everything you'd like to use. So an unset ring is important. And then I've just got a bunch of resistances, and I've also got the Amanamu prefix for minions deal damage if you've hit recently. You can add this to rings pretty easily by forcing the prefix and then using the omen that makes an Amanamu's mod always appear. Not guaranteed, but pretty likely to succeed here. I've got gloves, which are just as much ES as possible and resists. And then I've got a belt. Right now I'm using Darkness Enthroned with increased movement speed in it. And I've also corrupted it with max fire res. So Pharaoh's Runes of the Chase just for movement speed. Not necessary and extremely expensive to do this. But it is very, very nice for clear speed. And the more movement speed you get in this game, the better it is, right? Then I've got, in the similar vein, I've got boots right now, which are 35% move speed and 2 sockets with also Pharaoh's Rune of the Chase and double effect of the socketed gems. That's basically it. You just want as much ES and movement speed as you possibly can get here. As far as crafting these items go, I crafted basically all of these items by recombinating 2 T1 prefixes and then using omens to finish them. I have a crafting video on my channel where I talk a little bit more about that. But I think a lot of people have been making crafting videos, so I'm sure a lot of you guys are pretty acquainted with it by then. And here's one of the most difficult things to make for the build, the focus in the offhand. So you want as much energy shield as possible. You'd really like to get faster start of energy shield recharge. And of course, you really, really want this modifier that's desecrated +2 level of all minion skills. So this is an Amanamu mod, but you can't actually currently use the omens that guarantee Amanamu mods on foci. So you just have to YOLO desecrate it and pray, basically. This could be quite difficult to make, and it took me a lot of attempts to end up finishing this one. So I recommend that you just buy somebody else's in a trade league, if you can. Or you could use like a trench timber or something else before you get this. But this is a ton of energy shield you get and minion skills at the same time, so it doesn't get better than that. For my charms, I've got an Ignite Charm, I've got a Fall of the Axe, and you really don't need this, it's an expensive edition, but I've also got a Rite of Passage. I dropped this one of the cat, so that's the one I'm using, but you'd like to have the one of Global Defenses instead, I think. I forget which one that's called, but that would be better. You don't need a Life Flask for this build, and your Mana Flask isn't really important either, but you can use anything there. So let's talk briefly about the passive tree. For Ascendancy points, the first thing you want to take while you're leveling is Soulless Form. And then the second thing you want to take is probably Eternal Life to be tankier and hardcore. You might want to instead take the Jewel Socket to get some minion damage if you have a good Jewel for your Jewel Socket. You might even want to take this first. But in the end, what you're going to take is Soulless Form, Eternal Life, the Jewel Socket, and Rupture the Soul. Rupture the Soul is such a big deal for this build because you have Blasphemy Curse. So you get lots of Curse explosions from this. Extremely good. As far as the pathing goes, basically what you want to do is take as much minion damage and minion life as possible on your tree. And I have 2 different weapon set passives as well. So we'll start out with weapon set 1, which is your primary DPS Bogfelled one. You can see I come through here, I get all the minion damage, I've got minion life and a bunch of energy shield. In softcore, you could happily cut a lot of this energy shield and get more minion damage instead. There's tons of places where you can take more minion damage and minion life than on my tree. But the priority when you're leveling is to go through here, get this Jewel Socket, rush over to here, get Gigantic, then come over to here, get Mind Over Matter. As soon as you get Mind Over Matter, your health is effectively doubled while you're leveling, so it's a very powerful tool. And then there's lots of minion damage over here and resists that you could take while leveling as well. If you check out the Mobalytics, I have some examples of the level 30 and level 50 tree. But this is how the tree looks in the endgame. You come up here and you get more energy shield, more minion damage, life, a little bit of minion AoE over here in the first weapon set, and some energy shield from foci, CI, and all that. I don't swap to CI until I'm in the mid 80s because there's not really enough passive points to justify switching to it. Until then, I just play regular Lich with Chaos Resist and Eternal Life in Soulless form. So that's basically the tree. I also have chosen to spend a lot of points to come down here to get the 3% movement speed here and 4% movement speed here. You might not think that these are so worth it and cut these from the build and then get more minion damage over here or down here in this area or over here. So there's a lot of wiggle room with the tree. It's not really like locked in, but the things you really want to get eventually are CI, definitely, and you definitely want to get faster start of energy shield recharge. Without this stat on your tree and on your gear, ES feels a lot worse. My energy shield recharge on my build right now is about 1.5 second delay, so my ES comes back very, very fast, and all I have to do is kind of run around for a little bit and not get hit, and I'll be fully healed. So this is a very, very easy build to play. The only thing that you have to do when playing it is spam weapon swap. So every time you weapon swap, you start out with your offhand specters, and those stick around. And the more you spam it, you can see that multiple of them are lingering and completing their animations. So you can have multiple sets of them casting, spamming the screen with projectiles as you spam weapon swap. That's the only thing you have to do in this build is spam weapon swap. There's other buttons that you press. I'm going to go through the gems now. Here's some of the other buttons that you can press. Frost Bomb applies exposure to targets. It's pretty good at that job, but I also have it bound so it only casts on weapon set 1. So that way, when I'm spamming weapon swap, it gets kind of confusing which set you're on. But if you cast Frost Bomb, it'll go back to weapon set 1, and that'll bring up the Bogfelled Commoner. And the Bogfelled Commoner is all of your single target damage. So when you're fighting something that's tough like a boss or a rare monster that's tough, you want to leave the Bogfelled Commoner active and stop spamming weapon swap. And then when you're moving around, you want to be spamming weapon swap, basically. So let's go through the gems real quick. Pain Offering. Pain Offering with Sacrificial Offering gives it more effect for no cost. You can't sacrifice any life when you have 1 life. 15% of 1 life is nothing. It rounds down, so no downside. Brutus's Brain is really nice here, so Pain Offering doesn't die. Prolonged Duration, so it lasts longer in Magnified Area, so it has more AoE. I only use this button against bosses. That's the only time I ever use Pain Offering. Bogfelled Commoner, this is all of the damage for the single target of the build, and generally it's the damage up close, the highest single target thing here for sure. Infernal Legion is the thing that gives all the damage for the build. It makes the minion degenerate its health and apply an ignite based on how much health it has. Searing Flame increases the magnitude of that ignite, and yes, this does work. Magnified Area increases the area of the ignite. That also works, so increases it to AoE, also increase the radius of Infernal Legion, which is by default 2 meters. Then I've got Feeding Frenzy for more damage, and I've got Muster for more damage. These both work with Infernal Legion as well. So then Skeletal Storm Mage, I've got that for Muster generally. So there's a bunch of minions in the build, and these just really exist to, number 1, boost Muster, but also they're nice just to have against bossing because they can apply debuffs. Like the Skeleton Storm Mage can apply Shock. So I've got it with Last Gasp. It's very important that you put Last Gasp or Tech Rod's Revenge, if you can afford it, on all of your minions that are not Bogfelled Commoner or your offhand Spectre. If any of your minions die in this build, and then you weapon swap, all of your minions die. If your minion dies and it has Last Gasp, there's a 4-second window in which it is not counting as dead that you can weapon swap and swap back, and it'll just be alive again. So very important to keep Last Gasp on all your other minions so they don't accidentally die and break your weapon swapping. Otherwise, you'll be stuck for 6 seconds without any minions. So Last Gasp, Overcharge for increased magnitude of shocks, Shock for more chance to shock, and Stormfire so its shock never runs out on an ignited enemy. So against a boss, it just has to shock once and it lasts for the entire time. Then I've got Blasphemy Temporal Chains. This is one of the strongest defensive layers in the game at the moment, in my opinion. I've also got it supported with Ritualistic Curse for more AoE, Magnified Area for more AoE, and also Slow Potency for 15% increased slow magnitude. This is better than Heightened Curse because it doesn't cost additional spirit. If you have additional spirit to spend on this, you can have Heightened Curse in here as well. And then in my offhand, I'm currently using It That Guards, but I recommend that you initially get the Lost Men Zealot from the Lightless Passage, and use that. But after you get to Breach, you can use It That Guards if you'd like. And the supports for them both are the same. Wild Charge is the first most important one. These guys are spellcasters, so they have a 25% chance to fire 8 additional projectiles in a circle when you weapon swap each time. So 2 of them, 25% chance. They generally spam this really well. This is much better than Nova projectiles because it has no damage penalty. Then I've got Pierce 3, so they pierce all targets. This is really nice for clear. Feeding Frenzy for more damage, Control Destruction for more damage, and Projectile Acceleration, so that way their projectiles travel further, and it helps for clear. Like I said, these are enabled by weapon swapping, so every time you weapon swap, you're creating a new set of them, and they're allowed to cast and spam the screen with projectiles. Frost Bomb I just mentioned earlier. Elemental Weakness is the second curse that's enabled by having Whispers of Doom on your tree. And I only use this versus bosses. It's got Cursed Ground, so that way it lingers and you don't have to press it as much. Magnified Area for more AoE. Focused Curse, so they erupt faster. And Efficiency, so it costs less mana. Then I've got Skeletal Cleric. I've got Tekrod's Revenge on this, but it also could be Last Gasp. And then we've got Meat Shield. Sacrificial Lamb, so this is always the minion that gets sacrificed by Pain Offering when you're fighting a boss. And then Prolonged Duration on Skeletal Cleric as well. Then I've got Skeletal Frost Mage. You could replace this guy with Skeleton Sniper if you don't have enough spirit for him, but since I have enough spirit for him, I have Skeletal Frost Mage. And he's got Last Gasp like all the other minions. Feeding Frenzy, Muster, and Rapid Casting, so just damage. This guy's nice because you can occasionally apply Chill to bosses. So a nice little bonus utility that you can get out of one of your Muster minions. And then finally, I have Convalescence with Second Wind, Cooldown Recovery, Rapid Casting, and Prolonged Duration. This is not necessary for the build, and if you don't have an Unset Ring, you could cut this from the build, or if you don't have enough Spirit, you can cut it. Or you could cut one of these minions as well, either the Cleric, Frost Mage, Storm Mage. You can get rid of any of those minions if you don't have enough Spirit. All you really need to play this build is the Bogfelled Commoner and the Lost Men Zealot, or later, the It-That Guards. So that's basically all of the gear and the gems and everything like that. I think that this build is one of the best contenders for hardcore SSF, and just in general, this is one of the strongest builds you can play this patch, and I hope you guys really enjoy playing it. If you're playing it already, and if you're planning on playing it, enjoy, guys. If you have any more questions about this build, please come over to my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Oscrix, and you can ask me there, or join my Discord and leave a question there. And in the description, like I mentioned earlier in the video, there's some links to my Mobalytics for this build and some other informational videos about this build. So I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks so much. See you later, guys.